This is Groundeffected.
As you know, my name is your dad.
And welcome to Constantly Painting Skew-Eyed Models. In this video, I'm going to show you how I painted eyeballs. I've shown you before in previous videos how I painted eyeballs, and this time I've changed the recipe just a little bit so that you can get a slightly different look for your models. Of course, not everybody's going to like the way that I paint eyeballs, but if you want to change it up, here is a couple more extra tips for how you can paint your future eyeballs. Also, make sure to leave a like on the video and share it with your gran. Of course, there is a little box at the bottom YouTube gives you to leave some words. Make sure to leave some words, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing, because for every new subscriber that I get, I will have one more new subscriber. And let's just get straight into, how do you paint these eyeballs, Mr. Groundeffected? So we're going to start this video off assuming you've already painted the skin tones for the model that you want to paint the eyes on. I'm going to show you the colors that I use as I use them. These can be substituted for other colors, but the main premise is we want to make some kind of a pink. This is going to go on the bottom or lower portion of the eyeball itself. This is basically the same step as I previously used with the black only, but if you wanted to make your eyes look perhaps a little bit more on the realistic side and a little bit less on the cartoon side, then this is definitely going to help you to do that. I'm going to do the same process of filling in the eye, the entire eye, but this time instead of just black, I use pink on the bottom and I use black over the top of that. So you're going to have this kind of two-toned look to the eyes before you actually start with the whites of the eyes, but that's okay. You just need to make sure that the parts touching the bottom and the top are as crisp and neat and tidy as possible. Once I've done with the pink section, I'm going to go in with the black. This is a part that if you've watched any of my videos, you've already seen before. And I use this black in order to shape the eye. Technically, I'm not shaping the bottom of the eye this time because I'm only using it on the top portion of the eye. But when you look at an eye, it's generally got more shadow over the top and less at the bottom. This is just the way that eyes look. It's the way that light works. It's the way that everything works. Just accept it is how it is. In order to paint this accurately, the best way I can kind of describe it for you is to make sure that you use the side of your brush to shape perfectly the top of that eyelid section. Where it meets is not such a major issue, but the best thing to do is try to make it kind of blend just a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be at least in the center of the eye at the corners of it. I'm then going to use a series of whites and grays to create the whites of the eye. A lot of people will say you don't use white because white is not the color of your eye. That's fine. In this case, the paint that I use has been thinned down, so even though it's white coming out the bottle, it doesn't matter because when I stick it on, it's gonna dry a little bit see-through and some of the color underneath it is gonna show through. This is gonna make it no longer white anymore and completely cancelling out your argument that you don't use white for eyes. Thank you for coming. Please come again soon. In order to put this white in the eyes, the main thing you need to know is to keep some of the edge of the black and some of the edge of the pink, because that's shaping the outside of your eye. You need to make sure that's in there. It is a difficult step, but a little bit of practice will get you there. In order to create a little bit more depth in the eye, what I'm going to do is mix a blue. It doesn't matter what blue you use. You just want to take a bit of blue, a little bit of black, and mix that into your white that you used for the eye. And the reason you want to do this is because this will create a cooler depth towards the edges of the eyes. You're only going to place this into the corner, the outer and the inner corner of the eyes. Don't place this in the center, but as long as you've got that step right, you can then come back in with your whites again and you can start to reshape the eye again. I like to use a stabbing motion, especially when I'm working on something that's very precise like this. It's really difficult to make sure you get it perfectly exactly where you want the brush to go. This takes a lot of practice and skill, but if you work your way through a little stabbing motion at a time, it will help you to make sure that you actually place the paint where you want the paint to go. Like I said, you will come back after this step and add a bit more white to the eye, only in the center. Do not cover up the little bit of gray that you've added. Yes, it's not very visible or noticeable in a video setting, but trust me, it's 100% there. You can almost see the effect almost in the video, but it is there and it does definitely make an effect. Even if it's subtle, it's still a strong effect that makes the eye look round. Once you're done with this step, it's a good idea to make sure that everything is fully dried before you carry on with the next step. In this character, he has purple irises. If you were doing any other color, you would want to use the same steps, but just change the color. What you want is a very dark version of the color that the main color of your iris is going to be. This is because we're going to do the same step as we did setting up the eye with the iris. Basically, you're going to place down a perfect shape. You need to make sure this is the time when you are shaping the eye. If you get this step wrong, every other step from here on will be wrong. But if you do mess this step up, you can easily just paint white over it again and start again. However, going back to the idea of making the irises look cool, you want to make sure that the color that you place down is super dark. I would even argue that in some cases, you may want to mix a bit of black into your color if it's not dark enough. You just want this first step to be very dark. As you add in colors later on, you're going to leave a very thin line of this around the outside of the iris, and this is going to help sell the effect of the depth of that iris. I do tend to take my time with this. I make sure that I have quite a loaded brush for this. This does help, especially if you have a ball of paint on the end of your brush, to create a smoother edge. But don't get me wrong, it is also the easiest way of making a big mistake. Like I said, make sure to go through and 100% be sure that these eyes are as perfect as they can be. This step is the most important step. If they're looking skew now, they will definitely be skew in the future. For the next step of the irises, I'm going to start working up with a little bit of a brighter color. Again, this guy's eyes are purple, so I'm going to be using a brighter purple, and I'm going to place this in the same fashion as I did the whites of the eyes, leaving some of that dark purple around the outside, but I'm going to build this up in layers. This will be built up over perhaps 3 or 4 layers. As I'm working through this, you can see the purple slowly becoming brighter and brighter as it layers over itself. As I need to make it brighter, I'm going to start adding a bit of white into this purple, and you can see the color change a little bit, and this will be just at the bottom parts of the eye. In order to create the pupil for the eyes, I'm going to use pure black. This is just a matte black that I use, and I place this into the center. Sometimes you're going to get this wrong and you may need to go back. Don't be afraid to make those pupils bigger than you would think they would be. If they're too small, the guy's going to look like he's on drugs, and you don't want that unless you're painting someone that's on drugs. Working on the whites of the eyes, I'm going to use a cold white, and basically the first highlight needs to be more of an oval or a bit of a strike across the eye as opposed to just a dot, and then the second highlight, which is going to be a tiny little dot just placed just off the pupil and into the iris section. This is going to sell the effect that there is light and the eye itself is round. Now, you're not done if you've just painted your eyes at this point. You could be, but in order to really sell the effect of eyes and to absolutely ruin every photo you ever take of your model later, you need to add a little bit of gloss varnish on the inside. This is going to make the eyes look wet, and I don't know if you know this, but eyes are generally quite wet. So if you want the eye to look a little bit more realistic, you definitely need to add this step. However, this is the step that's going to ruin all your photos in the future. You are going to need to make sure that your light source doesn't shine off of this lovely glossy coat. And it's at that point that you can say, I've done myself some cool eyeballs. Hopefully you managed to pick out something in this video that may help you paint eyeballs in the future. Maybe it's not even eyeballs. Maybe you're going to use this information for anything else. And if you do, the best thing you can do is watch the next video so you can find more information for your next painting. If you want to join the community over on Discord, then you need to join the Patreon. There is a link for that in the description below. And we cannot speak about the Patreons without me thanking the newest Patreons we got this week. Luan Mendez, Mansonian, Kimberly M. Sheldon, Sin Akuma, Adam Shiver, Tristan Barnett, Chris Klatt, Cable Cult, John Castle. Also, if you want to make sure to support this channel, the best thing you can do 100% is watch the next video and click the like button. It's the best thing you can do to tell YouTube that these videos deserve to be watched. Now, we are at the best part of every single Groundeffected video. If anything, you should watch just to get this part. And this is the part where I tell you, if you didn't like what you saw in this video, the best thing to do you can tell me about it in the comments because that also helps the algorithm and I like that. But the next best thing to do is take your computer, throw it out the window, jump out the other window and just f*** off. Now I'm gonna go back to painting blue Space Marines just to annoy everybody.